Hello and welcome back to Witches of the Moon. I'm Eva Maria, your Monday hostess for this season. And this week our discussion is going to be on the last of the elements that we've been discussing. We're going to be discussing water. I'm going to start where I usually start, and that is with the tarot and the playing cards, what suits correspond to water as an element. In the tarot, the suit of cups corresponds to the element of water, and in the playing cards, the suit of hearts corresponds to the element of water. Hearts is, of course, very appropriate as a suit, being that water is a very emotional sort of element. And I'll get into that in just a moment when I talk about the associations of this element, what qualities this element relates to. The tools, the common traditional working tools that relate to this element are the chalice or the cauldron. These can be symbolic of the womb. And I think most practitioners, if not all practitioners, though hey, you never know, there could be exceptions, most practitioners, I think, designate or relate water to the direction of west. Colors that associate with water are most commonly blue, but there are also practitioners that would associate the color gray as being symbolic of the element of water, and yet there may be other colors as well, such as perhaps silver or white, or maybe even any combination of blue, gray, silver, or white can be used to represent the element of water. In terms of herbs, there are many different herbs that can be considered as associative of water. The first that comes to mind is seaweed, kelp, but also there are other herbs such as willow, particularly weeping willow. It tends to grow in places near water, or it tends to do well in places near water. But also roses correspond very much to the water element, and this makes sense because roses, they have a strong emotional orientation, and if you've ever grown roses, you'll know that they tend to like a lot of water. As funny as it may seem, potatoes can also be considered as water associative. Again, they require a lot of water to grow. If you've ever cut a potato open, they're very moist inside. They have there's a lot of water quality to potatoes. There are spells as well, by the way. I just do want to throw in where people do use the planting of potatoes or the sprouting of potatoes in order to manifest things. That can be considered as falling within the realm of water element magics. But let me continue on with my correspondence list. Melons of all sorts can be considered as associative of water. Again, they require a lot of water, and oftentimes, though not always, when you cut them open, they will have a lot of water inside. Coconuts can be considered as water associative too, as well as pumpkins. And also, moving away from the realm of vegetables, we have things like water lilies. But again, these are not all the herbs that are water associative. These are just some plants and herbs and things that do, I would say, fall within that associative realm. As for stones, the one that really sticks out in my mind, the one that really comes to the forefront of my mind is rose quartz. Though it's the one stone that really most readily comes forth for me, it doesn't mean that it's the only stone. There are many stones that are water associative. It's just that that's the one that really, really stands out for me. Rose quartz being, of course, very emotionally oriented as well. As for metals, silver or copper do have water associations. As for the water elemental spirits, they're called undines. I will say as well, planetary-wise, you may want to look at the correspondences that relate to the moon and or Venus as well. They are very water associative. This element as a whole is very feminine polar or yin oriented, you could say. As for qualities that this element tends to oversee, or things that are very water influenced, I would say, I can list the following, for example: relationships, sentiment, emotion, the psychic senses, creation, fluidity of things, openness of or to things is what I mean by fluidity. Also the flow of things, how things kind of go. Beauty, love, nurturing, healing, and even motherhood. These are qualities that relate to the water element very much. As for magical workings, there are many different kinds of workings that could fall within this realm that are very associative of water. For example, most obviously, baths, also floor washes, any kind of spells in the flush away realm. I don't know if you've ever heard of this method of banishing things, but it's very good for times, for example, when you're away from home and you can't really get to your altar to do something really elaborate, but you can do this in your house too. If there is a quality or a thing that is really bothering you, you can take a pen, go into the restroom, take a square of clean toilet paper, or more if you need it, write out whatever it is that you wish to banish away from your life, whatever it is you need to be rid of, whether it's something general, like let's say stress, or whether it's something more specific, like a particular situation. You write that down and be sure to, put your intention, emotions, thoughts, maybe visualization, things like that into it, that this thing is out of your life. You're getting rid of it, and then you consciously flush it down the toilet. Some people even say something along the lines of, I flush you away, or water carries you away from me, or something like that, when they're consciously tossing, crumbling up the square, throwing it into the toilet, and then flushing it. That's what is considered like a flush away spell. It's very, very suitable for banishing things. Also, spells that require freezing, snow, or anything like ice related, they fall into the realm of water related workings. Even the use of colognes or waters in magical working, that can be considered water associative. And then there are types of workings that the correspondences relating to water, or techniques that fall within the realm of water magics or water works, would very much suit. And particularly the two kinds of magic that come most readily to mind for me are love or reconciliation work or healing work. Those, I feel, water as an element and things that go along with water, they really are conducive to those genres of magical workings. There's also a method of divination that is very water associative. You'll understand why when I describe it to you. There is a kind of divination that suits well those that are very adept at scrying, or those that scrying comes very naturally to. For this method of divination, you would take a pot, you would fill it with some water, and you'd bring it to a boil on your stovetop. And then once the water comes to a rolling boil, you would focus on a situation that you want to know more about. You would maybe clear your mind and just really ask your guardians, guides, etc., your divinity maybe, about that situation or whatever it is that you want more insight on. And then you would take a digital camera. Don't hold it too close to to the pot. You don't want steam fogging up your lens or ruining your camera, but you want to take some pictures of the rolling boil, of the surface of the water. Just photograph, 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 a whole bunch. It can be any number of pictures, however many you feel most comfortable taking. It doesn't really matter. Maybe you want to take 3, maybe you want to take 5, maybe you want to take 7, maybe you want to take 9 if odd numbers are your thing. But there's no hard and fast rule to how to do this. You would just snap off a bunch of pictures and then you review them afterward and you scry into the pictures. You will see images in the boiling water, in the surface of the boiling water that you photographed, and they will give you impressions about whatever it was that you wanted to know more about. Reading the leavings in a coffee cup after you've drank a cup of coffee, that could be considered a divination form that falls within the realm of water, being that it uses fluid. There are people that will make a cup of coffee, drink the coffee, and then however the foam or the liquid coffee that remains on the sides of the cup, however that sort of makes formations, designs, however that sort of falls, you sort of scry into that. And that can also give you insight into a situation or something or problem maybe that you've wanted to know more about. As for how water and water associative magics and energy and influence sort of play a role in my practice, I would say that most often I turn to water related working in relation to cleansing in particular, to cleanse non-water soluble stones. I say that because there are stones that if you put them in water, things like selenite, they will actually melt. So please be careful what you try to cleanse with water in terms of stones, or even objects, little objects that are not water soluble. I will often cleanse them overnight in salt water. The method that I use for doing this is I take water that I've prayed over or blessed enough to submerge whatever stones or items that are not water soluble and will not be damaged by water. And then I will take some salt and I will proceed to throw 3 pinches into the water. This symbolizes for me, when I'm working with a bowl of water and I put in the 3 pinches of salt, it symbolizes for me the sacred great rite, the mating of the yin and yang, what it is that makes the universe alive, what creates life, that is the, I guess you could say action, but maybe you could consider it the spark, the source from which all in creation springs. It's very sacred to me, so I would use 3 pinches of salt to symbolize, the male coming into the female. And then I will stir the water with my finger going counterclockwise to represent the banishing of negative energy or stagnant energy or misaligned energy in the items that I'm going to be putting into the bowl. And then I will put the items into the bowl. This symbolizes sort of putting them into the womb of the divine yin, that they will be renewed. And then when morning comes and it's time to take them out of the bowl, I will dump out the water carefully so that I don't lose the stones or items that are in it. And then I will rinse very well with cool running water from the tap. I will rinse the bowl and everything in the bowl. I don't recommend reusing the same salt water. And the reason why is because I was taught, and I have found in my own experience, that if you try to put something else into the water that has absorbed out all the negativity from whatever was in it previously, if you put in something else, that thing will absorb that negative energy rather than have negative energy pulled and turned out of it. So if you're going to, I recommend cleanse stones or little items in salt water. Don't reuse your salt water. I really don't recommend doing that. Just in the morning when you take everything out, rinse it really, 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 really well with cool water, and then just dry everything off and you're set. You're good to go. Now, as for, again, the influence of water as a cleansing agent in my practice, baths, cleansing baths are like my go-to for self-cleansing. It's just the method that I really, really love. And maybe it's because I enjoy taking baths so much. I do have a link that I'm going to have for you below for a 7-ingredient bath that can also be used as a floor wash, or if you don't want to use it as a bath at all, you can just use it as a floor wash. It's like an either or kind of recipe. I'm going to have that video linked for you in the description below if you want to check that out. And finally, I have 2 teas I'd like to share with you, because every now and again in my practice I will make up, an ingestible brew for something, for a situation or for a need. And I have these 2 teas that I have tutorials for on my channel, one for cleansing, energy cleansing, and then one for psychic enhancement. And I thought that you all might enjoy watching those videos, maybe learning from them as well, because making tea, that does kind of, I would feel, fall into the realm of water element work. And I guess with that, I'm going to wrap up this video, because there's no way that I can say everything there is to say on the element of water. There's just no way. It would take forever. This video would go on endlessly. You'd probably totally get bored. You'd be like, shut up already. And also, I'm just here really to introduce the topic for the week. I'm here to bring in my perspective, but then to make the way and leave room for others to come in and share their experiences, their perspectives, their understandings with you. If you would like to share anything in relation to the water element, how you utilize it in your craft, or how you observe it in your understanding of it as an element, how you, let's say, things you might correspond to it that I may have not mentioned, you might want to share that in the comments. But with that, I'm going to wish you blessed be and ashe. You have a great night. And I'm looking forward to what all of the rest of our hosts have to bring forth this week. This is going to be a really cool discussion. So stay tuned, stay awesome, and until our next exchange, until next time, bye-bye for now.